All right. Hair looks all right. The topic of today is not my hair. The topic of today is 3 steps to begin regaining control of your time. Look, I've got a number of executives who I coach, or who I know, endless amounts of senior professionals who lament that they're at the mercy of their calendars and that their calendars are full of a bunch of stuff that they wish they didn't have to spend their time on. They feel obligated to. And the reason why is because they have this other group of work they know they need to get done. There's a pending deadline, or it might not have a deadline, but it's incredibly important, and they're just neglecting it. It's priority, but not urgent. So they're stressed out, or they're working nights and weekends, or both. They're stressed out and working nights and weekends because the only time they can get that important work done is on the night and weekend. When I meet an executive and they're working like ridiculous hours, I'll say, what are you doing at night or over the weekends? And they'll say, I'm doing all the stuff that I should be doing during the week, but I can't because my calendar is jam-packed full of all this other stuff that other people put on it, right? This is what we're going to start to solve. So let's go down to the whiteboard here, because I'm going to share this so that we can walk through it together. Let's see, I hope you can see this. All right, there we go. All right. Okay, so there's 3 steps here. The first step, it's commonsensical. 1, you have to block time. It goes without saying that if you don't block your time, other people and circumstances will, especially if you're an executive or senior professional. So step 1 is creating small blocks of time where you're going to be inaccessible and you're going to work on those things that you know you should be working on. The question you have to answer first is, how much time should you block? Well, let's not start with should. Let's just start small with what you think you can block. So let's go to this calendar here. This is a sample calendar down here. Here we go. Okay, let's say your ideal work week. Ideal, just follow me here, is like a 10-hour day, a 50-hour work week. You're starting at 8:30 in the morning. You're working till 6:30 in the evening, Monday through Friday. Okay, so that's 10 hours. So answer this question. What percent of your work week do you think you should dedicate to those things that are most important? They're urgent, or they're priority, but not necessarily urgent. That group of things that you don't want to work on nights and weekends. What time do you want to spend during the week on that? Let's start with 10%. So we'll use like a 50-hour work week, which is an ideal. It's very nice. It's an ideal work week, maybe. And 10% of that is 5 hours per week. That's 1 hour per day. So what I want you to do is to block off 1 hour per day in separate 1-hour blocks. And it'll look like this. Pick the hour, the time of the day when you know that you have the most energy, the most creativity, and the most focus through that time. So for me, it's 11 o'clock, 11 to 12. Man, that's when I'm at my best. I'm cooking. I've got the best ideas. I'm full of energy. So I'll block off these like this. All right, we want separate blocks here. The reason why is flexibility. Because the first thing that I hear from executives is, Zito, there is not a single hour through my work week consistently that I can find time. And I say, yeah, I know that, of course. So it might look like this, right? It might look something like this. As long as you've got your 5 hours blocked as close to that hour when you're most effective, when you've got that energy and that focus, that's what you want. And maybe if it's 3 hours, maybe it's 2 hours, depending on whatever you came up with, but you want to block the time. Now, while you're at it, just go back to here. There's another group of work that you have to do. And it's not what's most important in priority, but it's like tactical, administrative work, email follow-up, Slack follow-up. So why don't you block time for that as well? So you're not doing it at all hours of the day. And maybe you will be anyway, but you can make a dent in it. This is the time you're going to have blocked to catch up on all this administrative tactical work. I have 2 blocks, one at the beginning of the day and one at the end. and they could be 45 minutes each, a half hour. But this is to bang through things like, you've got to update invoices or, some system, TPS reports, whatever it is that you have to do. Here's the mantra. If it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. That's what you want to go by. And so if you don't block it in your calendar, someone else is going to put time there, and you're going to end up doing this stuff again on nights and weekends. You're going to be following up on email. What's even worse than working nights and weekends on the most important priorities? Well, what's worse than that is working nights and weekends and being stressed out about all of the tactical stuff that you have to get done because you didn't block that off either, right? So step one, the point of this is block the time for yourself to get work done, whether it's at this end of the spectrum, the most important work to get done, and or this end of the spectrum, all the tactical things. All right, let's go back now to the next set of steps. Step two is we're going to communicate about these time blocks. And we're going to do that in two ways. The first is proactively. Okay, so you're going to have a group of people around you that are used to one way of engaging with you. They just drop time on your calendar. You're readily available whenever they want. You need to proactively communicate this shift you're making so that they understand you're making this shift for the best rather than them assuming the worst. So think of who it makes the most sense, direct reports, bosses, whomever around you that it makes most sense to send or communicate a message like this. It would go, hey, I'm implementing a new system to make sure I'm spending the right amount of time on work that's absolutely crucial to complete. So you're going to see two things. One, a set of blocks in my calendar that you haven't previously seen. And I ask that you understand that I need this time and that you respect those time blocks, okay? Two, you may find me pushing back on meetings or calls a bit more than I would have previously, delegating others to go. And I'm sure that you can understand and even respect that I'm dialing up how dedicated I am to making the best and highest use of my time, right? A message like this communicates with others around you responsibly. Why you're doing this. A number of people believe that they can't block time for themselves, that they must be available at all times because they would be irresponsible to not be available to everybody at all times. But what you're doing here is proactively communicating that you'd be irresponsible to not do otherwise. In fact, you're trying to be more responsible with your time, and people can do nothing but respect that, hopefully. The second thing is you want to think about now and create a canned response. You can rattle off yourself if you're talking to somebody live, or you can copy and paste and just drop into an email or into Slack. And it goes something like this. So somebody wants to book over one of these times you've got here for something, especially one of these times, these most important priority times. And you're going to say something like, hey, I'm really sorry, but I have a meeting booked at this time already to cover some incredibly high priority topics. And it'd be irresponsible to try to reschedule or to flake altogether on this. Is there any other time you can meet, or can this be solved by email quickly? Okay, you have to have a message that's short to the point and gets across. I would be irresponsible to not spend the time that it's already spent here, scheduled a meeting of some sort. It could be a meeting with yourself to cover this work. And it is incredibly high priority. If you're blocking this time for something else, just, etc., then that doesn't have integrity. But you need a message that you can fire off like this, that you can stand by and you feel good about, okay? So we're gonna communicate proactively, and then you have a canned response that you feel very, very secure with, that you're going to fire off when people want that time. Now, this is the big one. Thirdly, you need to protect the time. And the way you're going to do that is with a practice of emotionally charging this time. So look, this work has to get done. And by this work, I mean this work. All the work has to get done, even your tactical work here. But let's say these are going to be called like your most important tasks or your priority, but not urgent. It has to get done. And if you don't get it done during the week, during the day, the only time you can get this done is nights or weekends. So here's the rule you're going to make to yourself. Okay. When somebody wants to book over this time, let's say somebody wants to drop time in here. You don't get to just delete this time and schedule over it. The new rule, your commitment you're making to yourself is that you have to move it, and you're going to move it to the night, or you're going to move it to the weekend. And for every time you do that, you're going to see it mounting up. I now have 4 more hours on Saturday that I have to get work done. Now, the next thing to do is this. You need to emotionally charge this whole project with a reward and a penalty, so that every time you're tempted to move that time, it has gravity, it has weight to it. So for me, when I first started this process about like 8-9 years ago, I had 2 photos up next to my screen, reward and penalty. I'm going to show them to you. And the reward for me to maintain the discipline for this was to spend the time on the nights and the weekends with my wife and kids, who you can see here at the time. This was several years ago. And so every time I was tempted to accept a meeting about some product roadmap, X, Y, and Z meeting that they wanted to schedule during a time that I had blocked for one of my most important tasks, for this priority but not urgent, and I knew I was going to have to move that to the night or to the weekend, I would look at this picture and say, is this thing that I'm tempted to schedule here more important than time with these guys? Now, the penalty is inherent here, which is for every time I schedule something over, I don't get this reward. However, there's another penalty. So I was working so many hours at one point that I literally worked myself, my health, down into the gutter and into the hospital. So I also had this, was my second picture. This is an unfortunate photo of me in the hospital stay after I had had a number of precardiac symptoms that was purely coming from stress. But I was mimicking heart attack-like symptoms for a guy in his late 30s. And so I would look at these 2 photos, and especially this photo, both of them, and I would say, I'm so tempted to book something here and not maintain my process, and to just erase this. And that means I am choosing to go back to this, to work myself back into the ground, into the hospital. And I'm choosing that over this time with my family. Right? Now, look, is this a little extreme? I don't think so. What this is doing is it's creating a emotional weight behind a logical, intentional process you're setting. All right. So now let's get to action on this. The steps for this: 1, block the time; 2, communicate about it; 3, protect it. So let's turn this into pragmatic action. I want you to stop now, switch to another screen or whatever, take a look at your calendar, Outlook, Google Calendar, whatever it is. All right, go ahead, open it up now. I'll wait. Okay, great. Got it? Look right now, this week, not next week. Find a spot where you can block 15 minutes and block it now. And call it time blocking. Now, during that 15-minute time blocking block that you're setting up here, we're going to work on these 4 things. 1, I want you to think of how much time you want to block for yourself each week for these most important priority items. It will take you a few seconds to answer that question. Do that. The second thing you're going to do during this time is actually create the number of hours that you come to, create those blocks in your calendar the way that I just did on mine. 3, you're going to write out a Slack or email response that you can copy and paste whenever somebody asks for that time. Something that you feel good about, that feels responsible, that feels respectful and tactful, and that others will respect, so that you can just copy and paste it anytime somebody wants that time. All right. And thirdly, I want you to go find 2 photos, at least 1 photo that's emotionally charged, that will remind you about why it is that you need to maintain your discipline around those blocks of time. What would you be doing nights and weekends that you can't do because you're going to have to work on this other stuff then? Okay. Print them out or put them on the desktop of your monitor, your screensaver, somewhere you can see them. All right. Got it? Listen, do this. It's practical. It works. And start with a small percentage of your time. You'll see that it works, and then you can dial it up slowly. Okay. This is just the beginning of a breadth of things that you can do to begin to regain control of your time. This is 3 steps. Block your time, communicate about it, and then protect it. If you're completely underwater, I have a whole time optimization program that I can take you through, or like an entire team over a period of weeks. For an hour a week here and there, you can squeeze it in. Okay. But give me a shout. We can discuss how you can better manage your time like a beast and become a more effective executive, and do so with more balance and more sanity. All right. Okay, great. Have a good day. We'll catch up soon. Cheers.